At the moment, we have a supply chain that is completely broken. We have manufacturers who are struggling to understand how to create secure systems to start with. So we're seeing new standards come out of government talking about secure by design, privacy by default, and we want manufacturers to engage with those standards and incorporate those standards into their research and development functions so that they can be confident that at the point at which they sell a system, whether it's an access control system or a surveillance camera system, that those systems are secure as they can be at that point in time. We then need to make sure that through the installers, consultants and system integrators that they understand how to take that lovely secure component and put it into a network and leave that in a secure state so it doesn't compromise the wider infrastructure. So it needs to be properly locked down, it needs to be properly configured, it needs to be left with a proper username and password on it, not admin and password. And then the end user needs to take up the mantle and they need to know how to actually manage that system on an ongoing basis to keep it secure. And the key thing there is, as with any form of IT, and most of this now is basically IT rather than just dumb components, is we need to know how to obtain and install patches to the software as vulnerabilities are identified. So again, we need the manufacturers to be continually testing their equipment, and once a vulnerability is identified, to develop a patch for it to secure that vulnerability. We need the installer or the system maintenance provider to know how to install that patch, or we need to give the end user the skills and the tools for them to be able to obtain that patch and install it themselves. So one of the key threats at the manufacturer end is we think when we buy a particular brand of digital video recorder that that's been made by the organisation whose name is on the box. But often that's just a box that contains a whole load of components that have been bought, and in some cases those components have been bought from a range of companies from all over the world. And so we have no confidence that the component that's going into that black box actually has any security around it at all. And it was exactly this problem that allowed the Mirai botnet to harvest 500,000 digital video recorders, because there were components in those digital video recorders that had open protocols like Telnet, that had the username and password hard-coded onto the component so they couldn't be changed by the end user. And then you plug those onto the internet, and there are tools out there now that will be scanning for these vulnerabilities all the time. So we need manufacturers to be confident that their supply chain security is robust enough that they can guarantee the components they're putting into their equipment. We need the installers then to actually be leaving them with a properly configured secure device that doesn't have a default username and password. And we need the manufacturers and the installers to be working much more closely together so that there is a confidence that there is a knowledge transfer, education of the installers, that installers are regularly advised on changes to firmware so that they can then advise their customers. Because most of this works in a channel model, so there's no direct relationship between the end user and the manufacturer. There's always that middleman. And that middleman then needs to be competent and capable and reactive. Just about a month ago, we saw a whole range of CCTV images being live streamed across the internet. Some of them in retail, some of them in banking organisations, but also some of them have been set up in schools. And the majority of them were compromised for exactly that thing. It wasn't a hard hack, they were compromised because the username and password was left with admin and password. So this is real basic hygiene that we shouldn't be seeing this anymore. And you can say, well, okay, it's just a bit of CCTV imagery, but in the case of the school, some of those cameras have been set up in sensitive areas, like in the children's bathrooms. So we've got CCTV cameras that are pointed at toilets that children are using that aren't properly secured, that are then being live streamed across the internet. And we really, we need to be protecting children better than that. That's a safeguarding problem. And And we're seeing this time and time again, that devices that are being installed onto our corporate networks so that we can use the corporate backbone for communication and power over Ethernet and a whole range of good reasons are actually providing the backdoor that allows an attack on our infrastructure to happen. So it might not just be an attack on an air conditioning system or an attack on a CCTV system. It's that the air conditioning module or the CCTV module allows the attackers to gain a foothold that then allows them to attack our corporate networks, our government networks, and possibly even our critical infrastructure. There are a range of tools out there now, most of them free to download and increasingly easy to use, which is great for the attackers because we're really getting into the world now of commercializing attack tools, which lowers the bar to entry, makes it easier for people to learn how to hack. And there are tools out there that you set off running when you go to bed, and when you get up in the morning, it'll say, hey, here are all of the vulnerable Internet of things that I found that you can potentially attack. And last week, somebody decided, wouldn't it be really great if I bundled that with a suite of tools that already exist that allow me to automate attacks on these vulnerable devices. So now you can download a piece of software that will not only find the vulnerable devices, but while you're sleeping, will run the most common attacks against them. And when you get up in the morning, they've already been hacked, they're already compromised, and you've got a ready-made botnet. Now, if it's that easy for the attackers, and it's our failure to secure devices by design, to have a failure in security by default that's allowing these tools to run, we're making it so easy for them. So we need to up our game, and we need to have these tools actually being used by our own people. Wouldn't it be great if when somebody goes to install a security system on site, the last thing they do before they leave site is they run something like Autosploit, and it tells them if they found something, it tells them if they've missed a security setting, and it gives them the opportunity to put it right, rather than waiting until somebody hacks the system and then going, I should have known about that.